I need to start this video by clearing the air. The last video I made on why I switched to single speed got a lot of really great positive comments, but also a lot of questionable claims. So I'm here today to set the record straight. It won't make you faster on a majority of your rides. It won't turn you into an elite athlete overnight, and it definitely won't make you any cooler than you were before you switched to single speed. But over the past month, I've also found some things that do happen when you switch to single speed. I've found that, at least for me, it will make you a better rider. It will challenge your perceived limits. And most importantly, at least in my opinion, it'll make most of your rides a hell of a lot more fun. Today, I'm gonna give you my honest, upfront opinion about what the last 2 months since I've switched to single speed has been like, and whether or not I'm gonna be putting the gears back on my bike anytime soon. To get started, I'm gonna give you a brief recap on how I set my bike up. If you want more details on this, I did a whole video where I walked through the process. I talked about how I actually made the switch, as well as how I chose my gear ratio, and I'll link that video here. Due to the fact that my RSD Middlechild has adjustable dropouts, I can basically ride any gear ratio I want without needing to use a derailleur or a chain tensioner, which has been super cool. From the onset, I bought 4 cogs. 14, 16, 18, and 22 to run with my 30-tooth chainring. I've run 30-14 when riding more bike park and dirt jump stuff, and 30-18 on trail rides. That gear ratio has proven to be super versatile, and seeing as I live and travel in my van full time and seldom ride the same trail more than once or twice, that versatility has been super key. Now, there were a lot of reasons why I chose to switch to single speed. I like the simplicity of it. I like the look of it. Kind of reminds me of a BMX bike. And ever since I was a kid, I've thought single speeders were super badass. But there were even more reasons that I was afraid to switch to single speed, which is why it's taken me so long to do it. The biggest of those 2 fears were gaining enough speed to hit the jump lines and stuff that I like to do, and of course, being able to climb without having your granny gear. And I'm gonna go ahead and start by addressing that first fear. Like I mentioned earlier, I went ahead and bought a lot of different cog sizes right off the bat, just so I'd have plenty of options. And I have gone ahead and made that switch several times. If I'm gonna go, say, ride a dirt jump park, I will go ahead and put a smaller cog on the back, so I just don't have to worry about it. And then I essentially have the gearing of a dirt jumper. So that's worked just fine. There's also been a few occasions when there's been like a little dirt jump park at the base of a trailhead where I've been riding, and I've been lazy and haven't wanted to go ahead and switch the cog over. And I've tried riding it with the 30-18, and it's definitely been challenging, but if anything, it just makes it more fun to try to hold as much speed as you can through the berms and pump extra hard to maintain speed without pedaling. But other than those couple of instances, I really haven't had an issue with maintaining downhill speed while riding the single speed. Moving on to my second concern, and probably the one that's more relatable to most of you, and that is its climbing ability. Let me preface by saying that I am far from an XC rider. I hate climbing my bike up hills just as much as the next guy, but I know it's a necessary evil, and so I try to get decent at it, and I try to make it as fun as I can. And that's probably been my favorite thing about the single speed, is it's made the climbing actually more fun. I thought it was gonna be the opposite. I thought it was gonna be a complete sufferfest trying to grind my way up these steep hills and techie climbs, but it's actually made it a lot more enjoyable. It's made me switch from my shift into the granny gear, put the seat up, and just winch myself up the hill, to having a much more aggressive and powerful climbing style, more akin to how I like to descend trails. And yeah, it hurts my legs, and I can't go on maybe as long of a ride as I could if I just winched myself up the hills, but I found that I enjoy that a lot more, which makes sense. I love attacking the downhills, so why not attack the climbs too? And the single speed has really taught me how to do that. Now, could you do the same thing on a geared bike? Yeah, of course you could. But again, you're gonna have that extra unsprung weight in the back from your cassette, which will take away a little bit of the snappiness. And I know, at least for me, being a big guy who's really trying to push hard on those pedals, I'd be nervous about starting to break components if I was pedaling like that with the drivetrain I had before. This single speed, however, is bulletproof. You can push on this thing as hard as you want, and I don't think anything's gonna break. So I'm super thankful to say that the climbing situation has gone a whole lot better than I thought. And one area where I've liked it especially well is in techie climbs. The single speed just feels like a trials bike. You can really just kind of pop your way up and over stuff much more easily than I feel like I could on my geared bike. Is it placebo? It might be, but I like it. Speaking of placebo, there's been some other weird changes that I wouldn't have really expected to come from the single speed. I contemplated even putting this in the video because it just seems so off base, but it's felt a lot easier to manual and wheelie with the single speed than it did with my geared bike. And that doesn't make any sense for me. If anything, especially with the wheelies, I would have thought having some gears to choose from would have helped. I don't know if this is just specific to me and maybe it feels a little bit more like a BMX bike, or if it has something to do with less weight on the rear wheel. I really don't know what it is. If you have an idea of why that could be, put it in the comments. For now, I'm kind of just going with the fact that it's placebo. But again, if placebo helps, then it helps. One more thing that I've loved about the single speed setup, and I'm sure this won't come as a surprise to any of you, is just the ease of maintenance. You never have to worry about adjusting your derailleur cable, lubing your chain, keeping your chain clean is that much easier. So your bike's just running smoother and you have to do less work to keep it that way. Now, I've spent the last couple minutes raving about all the things I've loved about my single speed setup. And if there's any skeptics or critics left on this video, I'm sure you're asking me, what is it that I haven't liked about the single speed setup? And there definitely are things. My biggest issue with it, and I mentioned this before, is my inability to take this on a long, say 20-mile trail ride through the mountains. I definitely find that my legs and my lungs burn out a lot faster than they did when I was riding a full geared setup. The longest ride that I've done with my single speed setup was about 10 miles out near Joshua Tree National Park. And it was 10 miles of just constant up and down through super rocky technical terrain. It's one of those trails where you actually never felt like there was a downhill because you were going so slow down all these chunky stair-step rocks that you couldn't carry any speed. And that was an exhausting ride. That said, I'm honestly still glad that I had the single speed on it, just because, like what I said earlier, it makes those kind of techie, chunky climbs a little more fun in my opinion. Thankfully for me, however, my preferred ride is more in that like 5 or so mile range where you're stopping every couple minutes to session a feature for a little while before moving on to the next. So I don't think the inability to go on those epic long rides is going to be much of an issue for me. That said, if you are that type of rider, then you better just get really fit or stick to your normal 10, 11, 12 speed cassette. This next issue I've had with the single speed is gonna kind of sound like a joke, but it's actually a real issue that I feel like I've kind of had with it. And that is the whole single speeder stereotype of like telling everybody that you're on a single speed. And it just kind of comes out naturally. Someone jokes about being in the bad gear and you just want to say, oh, I'm always in the bad gear. And I keep biting my tongue because I don't want to be that guy. So if I've said that to you at some point, I apologize. There is one single speed cliche though that's definitely true, and that's that it will change your approach to how you ride your bike. And whether that change is for the better or for the worse really depends on the rider. For me, I've really enjoyed the kind of fresh look at mountain biking and the way that it stretched my skills in different ways. Do I think it's the end all be all for every mountain biker? No. Do I think it's in some way superior to riding a derailleur on your bike? Absolutely not. Derailleurs are freaking awesome. But if you're looking to change things up and you like a challenge, or you really just want to reduce the complexity or maybe the weight on your bike, then going with a single speed can be a really cool option. My goal in making this video was to shed some light on the truth of what it's like to change to a single speed, and hopefully it helped you out. As for me, I don't plan on switching this bike to a geared setup anytime soon. I think that the more kind of BMX or trials geometry of this frame really suits the single speed well, but I do have a more aggressive steel hardtail that I'm planning to build up as more of an enduro racer, and I think I will put a 10 or 12 speed cassette on that one. If you liked this video and you found it interesting or helpful, please go ahead and hit that like and the subscribe. This helps more people find the video. While you're down there, go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me about your thoughts or experiences of riding a single speed. Once you've done that though, go ahead, hop off your computer, hop on your bike, no matter how many gears it has, go for a ride. Hopefully, I'll see you on the trail.